Hello, listeners, and welcome back to yet again another episode of the Beautiful Game podcast. As ever, I'm your host, Budge, and I'm joined by my two faithful co-conspirators, Dot and Dej. I know you're probably thinking it's been a little while that you've seen the trio in action. So we're back again with some top-tier content, as we always deliver. Before we crack into what we're going to be discussing on this episode, I need to remind all of you, if you're not yet following us on our socials, you need to make sure you do that now. Specifically on YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you hit that like button for this episode and sign up for all notifications. So whenever we drop a new video, you're always the first to find out about it. You can do it now. I'm going to give you a few seconds. Just look below, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We're continually growing the platform, of course. You guys that have been on a journey with us up until this point in time, we appreciate you, but we need to keep pushing the platform forward on all of our accounts, on YouTube here, on Twitter, it's at podcast_TBG. If you're not yet following us now, make sure you do it now. And also on Instagram at pod_TBG. Okay? Cool. How's it going, boys? How are we doing this evening?
Very well.
Yeah, I'm doing good. Happy to be here, man. It's been a minute. Since it's been just us three. So yeah, happy to chop it up.
100%. Now, of course, with this particular episode, what we wanted to do, we wanted to have a bit of a deep dive in terms of the current situation and the future, actually, of the strike force at Arsenal Football Club. Of course, the platform has very close ties with some of the agents behind the scenes who look after some of the clients of the Arsenal strikers. And there has been a lot of back and forth and up and down, to say the least, surrounding a particular player in Folarin Balogun. And so what we want to do on this episode is have a bit of a deep dive, go through the timeline of events and basically bring to light what is the latest in the state of affairs as it pertains to Folarin Balogun. Of course, it's also been long stated that Arsenal, coming into this next transfer window, will have a lot of work to do in their strike force. Aubameyang, the talisman striker, earlier this season signed a new contract worth 350k a week. There's Martinelli, he's been brought through. There's Nketiah, who's been in and out of the team, and of course, there's a grey area surrounding Alexandre Lacazette, who's coming into the final year of his contract, and whether Arsenal will be keeping him or not. So we're gonna dissect each of those things. But if you guys could please just give us a bit of a breakdown in terms of where things are at with Folarin Balogun in particular at this moment in time.
But
no, I thought you were getting your notes.
As broken by Adrian Kajumba on Friday morning, Folarin Balogun is set to sign a new contract with Arsenal. It's been an interesting one because, last summer it looked very likely that he would be leaving Arsenal. There was around 15 clubs interested in the player.
Wow.
He got rave reviews from a lot of Premier League clubs. A lot of people at clubs in the Premier League that I spoke to said, listen, this boy's got all the talent. He's a top talent. There was also interest in, from Germany, Italy, all over the globe, really. And I think for Arsenal to get this deal done is certainly, caught me by surprise, because it looked like he was going to leave and he was really close to leaving, but it seems like the players had a change of heart. And he's going to be signing a new contract with Arsenal for the next 4 years.
And what I wanted to ask you, Dej, is just like what Dot mentioned there, he was talking about the fact that there was quite significant interest, not only domestically, but abroad as well. Do you have any insight into why clubs didn't make more of an aggressive pursuit of Folarin Balogun, or is it that there was more aggressive pursuit that just wasn't public knowledge?
No, there was a lot of interest, as you mentioned, from abroad. The leading clubs in Italy, most of them were interested. Germany, Stuttgart was mentioned. Werder Bremen were mentioned. But I think the ball was always in Flo's court. It was up to him to decide his future. And at a stage, it was looking very, very likely that he would say, you know what, there's no pathway for me here. I'm going to have to flee the nest to find more opportunities. And it's interesting because we spoke to Ben Nketiah on our podcast recently, and he actually advised Flo to leave, saying, when you think about Arsenal's striking situation, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, as you mentioned, the highest paid player at the club, you would imagine he's going to start. Obviously, Lacazette, this is where it gets interesting for me. His contract situation being up in 2022, you can imagine that maybe he's probably going to get sold in the summer. And Arteta's pitch to Flo would be, listen, we're probably going to get rid of Lacazette. There's going to be opportunities for you to get some minutes. Because I can actually see Martinelli filling that Lacazette role in terms of being a striker. So I think to answer your question, there was strong interest from abroad. But I think Flo and his team around him wanted to buy their time and make sure they made the right decision. And I think it all came down to the state of the matter of, can you show us the minutes? Can you make sure we're going to find the minutes to be playing regularly first team men's football? Because this season, he's been in stunning form in the under 23s, scoring 8 goals, getting 2 assists in 16 games. So he needs to be playing men's football. And, you know, fortunately for Arsenal, another one of the Hell Academy have signed a new contract, joining, you know, Bukayo Saka.
And I think from Flo's end, I think the message was always to try and stay at Arsenal as long as there was assurances that he's going to get first team football. I think that was never in doubt. He's an Arsenal lad. He loves the club. He wants to play for the club. But the only concern him and his representatives had was, is he going to get enough game time? And I think Arteta has been crucial in getting this still over the line. But I think I want to go back to the interest. And I think Dej mentioned Stuttgart. As we know, Sven Mislintat used to be at Arsenal. And they were strong on Flo. Ivan Gazides at AC Milan, he was, you know, a big fan of Flo as well, and there was strong interest from AC Milan. Brentford were very close to signing him in the summer, but they opted with Ivan Toney. But the Flo deal was still there, but they went for Ivan Toney because I think Flo had certain reservations, you know, to make that move to Brentford. So there were so many clubs. Crystal Palace was another club mentioned to me. Southampton was another club. So the boy is signing for Arsenal for the next 4 years, and I think I can't wait to see how he's going to develop.
100%. And I think, you know, you guys mentioned the fact that it's another Hayland Academy graduate who's signing on at the club, and it is definitely an indication from the club that they really want to bring through the younger players. You know, you've got Emil Smith-Rowe and Bukayo Saka, of course, who have risen to prominence, particularly this season. The key question that I have in my mind is how this sort of works out in terms of where he fits into the team. And so the first question I want to ask you guys on this is, what does this mean in relation to the other young strikers at Arsenal? So we've already mentioned, for example, Gabriel Martinelli, who is a young player that Arsenal highly rate. You've also got young Eddie Nketiah, who's got a brilliant goal scoring record for England, you know, and so how do you guys see this potentially working? Will Martinelli and Balogun play in, you know, on the pitch together? Do you think they can form some sort of partnership long term? Do you think that both of them are going to be competing for the same position? And also in terms of Eddie Nketiah, where does he fit into all of this, do you think?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because Flo and Eddie are actually signed with the same agency, but I think for the season coming up, I don't think Flo is going to be expected to start several games. I think when you look, it's going to be a bedding in process. As I mentioned before, Lacazette coming into the last year of his contract, I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, he's sold this summer, because this is probably going to be the last window where you can get some good cash for him. Willian, he's signed, I believe it was a 2 or 3 year deal. So you would expect by the time he's coming towards the end of that, maybe that's when Flo would start to be integrated into the team properly. You would have to say on current stuff, Martinelli's ahead of him in that pecking order. When he's played, he's shown, you know, great enthusiasm. He's a great reference point for Arsenal. But the only thing with him is the injuries. So I think Flo probably isn't expected to come in next season and be playing 15, 20, 25 games. I think maybe 5 to 10, then build in from that.
Yeah, and you didn't mention Aubameyang, because I think that's a bit of a tricky one in the summer. I think when you look at his dwindling influence on the Arsenal team, you kind of think, hold on, have Arsenal made a mistake tying him down to 350,000 a week? Because, this season he hasn't performed to the level that we know he can. And you got to start asking the question, is Auba on the decline? Because if he is, then it's going to be a bit of a problem for Arsenal, because
Arsenal have arguably played better without him in the team.
Exactly. We saw today a sensational performance from Alexander Lacazette, who scored a brace. And I think it's a difficult one because Eddie Nketiah, I think on international duty, he spoke about his recent frustration with his situation at Arsenal. We know that he's a goal scorer. We know that he's got bags of ability, but is he going to get enough opportunities to show that at Arsenal? And the answer for me is I'm not sure. I think in January, there was genuine interest from West Ham. I'm not sure if that, resulted in a concrete offer or a concrete inquiry, but I'm sure that they like the player. So I think that could be one to watch in the summer, because I see Eddie potentially moving on.
Very, very interesting one. And again, particularly as Dej mentioned earlier, the fact that he and Balogun both are signed to the same agency is one that is even more interesting. That being considered. Going back to what you guys mentioned previously about the fact that Lacazette could be moved on in the summer. Of course, him being in the sort of the towards the end of his contract. A lot of Arsenal fans will argue that he's actually more important in the team at this present moment in time than Aubameyang. He's in better form. He's scoring goals, and no doubt he will, of course, be playing for a new contract. But on the flip side, it also is a great advertisement to potential new suitors, right? And so, given considering his current age and his qualities at this point in time, if you were to consider or think about clubs that he could potentially move to, where would you see being a realistic and likely destination for Lacazette for his next club should he be sold?
There's been a lot of talk recently about Atletico Madrid. He's always been linked with them, even before he signed for Arsenal. Apparently, he had a gentleman's agreement to join them. Last summer, I know there was concrete interest from Atletico again, but he decided not to go, or they couldn't sort of muster up the funds. So I'm not sure where he could go, because he's in that tricky age bracket, late 20s, early 30s, no resale value. You're getting potentially a player that's probably seen his best years that are behind him. So if I was going to talk about a potential destination, I would say probably France, maybe back to Lyon, or maybe to Spain or something like that, because he's still got performances in him, but they're fleeting. Like, you'll see some brilliance, then you see some games where he goes missing. And that's been the issue for a lot of Arsenal fans that I speak to, is that, can you show us this form enough? And recently it's been no.
That's it. That's very interesting, particularly because, of course, Memphis Depay has been heavily linked with a move away to Barcelona. So that could potentially open up an opportunity there. What about you, Dot? Do you agree with the clubs that Dej mentioned there, or do you think there are a few other potential suitors that we haven't mentioned also?
No, I'll probably agree with Dej. I don't think he's quite at that level to go to a club necessarily way better than Arsenal. And when I say that, I mean like a PSG or a Barcelona or Real Madrid. I don't think he's at that level. And I can't see him moving to a top 6 rival, because I don't think he's at that level either in terms of Premier League clubs. So I would say maybe Atletico Madrid. As Dej said, they've admired him for a very long time.
Potentially Roma. I think Roma were interested.
Maybe Italy, AC Milan or Roma. Maybe potentially if Lukaku leaves Inter Milan this summer, maybe they can look at Lacazette as an option, or staying at Arsenal. But I can't see him going to one of the top clubs in Europe at the moment, because I just don't think he's that guy.
And so with all things considered, of course, Flo signing this new deal and what things look like in terms of players who are going to be exiting Arsenal this summer, do you guys feel that it's not likely that the club will go out and search for another striker in the market. I know they've at times been linked with, I forget his name, the centre forward for Celtic. Edward,
Yeah.
Odson Edward, for example. There's been a lot of links connecting him to the club. Do you feel, especially considering finances and the fact that a lot of clubs, of course, have been stricken by the COVID-19 pandemic, and given where Arsenal are at this point in time and the fact that they need to strengthen in so many areas, do you feel that this is an indicator that they're going to turn their attention away from signing a striker and look to bolster their options elsewhere? Or do you still feel like they could go out and strengthen in that area in the market in summer?
I think outgoings will definitely dictate that. Obviously, if Eddie Nketiah is to leave, I'm sure they'll probably want another body, or that might open up a door for Flo to get in on the action and get some minutes. But as you mentioned, Arsenal is still a real rebuilding project. Arteta is yet to probably get the players that can play the style of football that he wants. It's all a bit patchy at the moment. He's got a few players that you think, yeah, these are Arteta players, but it's still not rounded enough, in my opinion. So again, as Doc mentioned earlier, a lot will depend on Uber's situation. Can Arteta say he can hang his hat on him and say, he's going to deliver me the goals? Because as I mentioned, Lacazette's situation coming into the last 12 months, that's going to be one where they're going to have to make a decision. It's either we sell you for decent money or tie you up to a new contract. And when you sort of look at the recent history of Arsenal giving new contracts, the players entering that 30 years of age, it hasn't really looked successful. Obviously, Uber's in a bad vein of form, but he can easily come out of that. So I think much will dictate on the outgoings, Lacazette's future and Nketiah, whether they sign a new striker. But I think Odson Edward would be a good one, 15 to 20 million pound, got a lot of upside. I know teams like Leicester are looking at him, and that would make sense for me, in my opinion, because Arsenal, obviously, they're not expected to play in Europe, barring, winning the Europa League, which, in my opinion, looks unlikely. So, yeah.
Fair play. And the only other question that I wanted to ask on this is, some Arsenal fans won't be too familiar with Flo. Of course, he's had limited chances in the first team so far this season. I'm pretty sure a lot of the fan base don't watch the under threes too often. So if you could help paint a picture to Arsenal fans about the kind of player Folarin Balogun is and his strengths and his qualities, where would you say his strengths lie, and what kind of player can Arsenal expect to see in years to come leading the line if possible?
Excitement, I think. A lot of pace, a lot of power, a lot of dribbling ability, and I think this is a player that can just potentially explode and be a very, very, very good striker. And I was actually speaking to someone very close to the player, and he was like, look, over the last few years, we've really honed in on his technique, because before he used to get the ball or be a bit rough technically, but now he's trapping the ball, he's setting it off one touch, he's built his game. And I think with age, this is a player that's only going to get better.
Yeah, he's a player that's got, I would say for someone so young, he's already got a lot of strings to his bow. He can get in behind, he can dribble, he's very good 1v1, he can link up his play. And I think that was shown in the Europa League game, the way he took his goal. It was like a young Jermaine Defoe, the way he swept that in. Someone, behaving much older than the years that they have. But I think he's someone that is keen to learn. He wants to do it his way. He believes he's ready now to play minutes. He backs himself. He's confident. And he's got all those ingredients to mix it at that top level. Because I often say, when you're at academy level, the ability is never the problem. More often than not, it's the mentality. And he's got an elite mentality that I think can take him to the top if he's given those opportunities to show what he's about.
Yeah, and that's it. He's got that mentality. He's not one that wants to just be, hanging around, sitting on the bench, not playing football. He wants first team opportunities. He wants to prove himself at the top level. Arsenal is his club, and he wants to show what he can do at Arsenal. And he will be signing a 4-year contract to show that.
Right. I think that perfectly describes and encapsulates all his qualities and what Arsenal fans can hope to expect. I'm sure that certainly will whet the appetite of all the Arsenal fans tuning in. But it is, of course, very, very exciting news to hear that he will be staying at the club, and really just shows the direction that the club are moving in. Again, as we mentioned, just signing down these Hale End Academy graduates to long-term contracts. Of course, it's been well stated so many times throughout the season that it is very much a project, and this is for the long term. So I think, you know, Arsenal are certainly marking out that intent with some of these deals, and the fact that they are really trying to tie down these you know, young players to these long-term contracts. And I think it's even more important, of course, in this climate where clubs don't have much money. You can't go out and spend, you know, there's loads of clubs that are going to be in the market for a striker, and, you know, some of the fees that are being quoted, just like, it's just going to be very difficult for clubs to put down that kind of outlay for the players that no doubt will be linked with clubs up and down Europe this summer. So certainly one that's interesting for us to keep an eye on. And I'm sure you guys will agree, it's going to be very, very exciting seeing more of Folarin Balogun. We've seen him in spells. You know, you mentioned Dej there in the Europa League and here and there. We've seen him, you know, absolutely destroy teams for the under 23s. So it's time that he makes that step up now, and we see him, you know, applying his trade right at the top level. But yeah, thank you very much, guys. Thank you for sharing, you know, your thoughts on those matters, and of course the conversations that you guys have been having with, you know, the people that are handling the player and dealing with, you know, the contract side of things behind the scenes and whatnot. It's been brilliant insight from you guys, and of course, I'm sure if anything should change or if there's any further detail that, you know, you will be sharing it on our pages. So for all of you guys tuning in, you know, keep a lookout. That's why you need to be following us on Twitter. That's where we do break news as and when it does come through. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Make sure you're following us on Twitter at podcast_TBG. I'm reminding you again, if you're not yet subscribed to our YouTube channel, do so right now. It's literally below there. Just look below, right? The thumbs up sign. Make sure you click that, hit the subscribe button, turn on the bell icon, so that way you can sign up for all notifications when we drop new content, which is regular. So make sure you're staying tuned, and we're going to catch you guys on the next episode. Until the next one, over and out.
Peace.